share my screen. Making sure this works. All right. Come on now. There we go. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. Thank you. So a very quick introduction of the three of us. I'm Zach Newman. I'm a administrator. I was a teacher. I taught French, but I'm a school type of administrator now. Joining me today is Johanna Federwisch. She is a realtor. And then also we're going to have Reverend Becki Neumann, who's an Anglican priest. And yes, Reverend Becki is my mother. All right. A few guidelines for this morning. I know this is a little awkward. If you haven't done Zoom before, but we'll make it work. We're just going to ask that you participate with everything, especially in this first bit. I'm going to ask you to turn to a neighbor, to turn to colleagues and speak with one another. I want you to ask questions. Tell us if you cannot hear us or if we're speaking too fast. Please keep an open mind. We're all here together. We're all here to learn. We're all here to um, be better teachers and be better for our students and enjoy yourself. And enjoy the time you're able to have with your colleagues. All right. I want you to just turn to a neighbor. Well, first it'll take 1 minute, not three. Take 1 minute and just think about why are you here? What do you hope to get from our time together today? I'm going to give you 1 minute and then I'll give you the next direction. So 1 minute, think about why are you here? What's your purpose for being with us today? All right, that's about 1 minute. So what I'd like you to do now is turn to one or two neighbors, people who are near you, and talk to them. Share with that person or those people why you're here. What is your purpose? I'm going to give you about a minute to do that. Um, Go ahead and turn to somebody and tell them why you're here. What's your purpose for being with us today? All right, I'm going to call time for that. So everybody, can you finish up your conversation and turn back to the front? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, it's all part of the group. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, we're going to continue. All right. You're still muted. You're still muted.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Who's from Ghanaian? Yeah, please. This morning I'm here to learn new ways, strategies and techniques of teaching my learners, also to impact their knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have one more person. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Anyone else? One more.
One more. Hello.
Good morning.
Morning. Okay, my purpose here is to learn more creative ideas and also to learn new strategies that will improve upon teaching and learning.
Excellent. Thank
So
you.
thank you.
All right. Can we go ahead
Can we go
and
ahead and
again, and I'll
again
keep
and I'll
going.
keep going. Yeah, I'm George. Uh, my purpose being here is to learn the new ways of teaching the kids how to read and also to make new friends and to socialize as well. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
All right. I'm
you.
going to
I'm
ask that
gonna ask
we
that we
keep going.
keep going.
Um,
Um,
please mute the
please mute
computer
the
that's
computer
there
that's
so we
there.
can keep going. Thank you. All right. So we are all here focusing on reading camp. And throughout the course of the morning, we're going to be sharing different activities and ideas that you can use in reading camp. So for those of you who are new, I'm going to share a little bit about reading camp. Reading camp is when we bring students to our locations and we focus on reading. We focus on literacy and helping students better read. Um, we work with stories. There's poems, there's books, and the whole focus is on helping students learn how to read better, but also helping them to enjoy reading and being able to read for pleasure. And with that, there are many strategies, there's many ideas. We have prepared lessons that you so that you don't have to prepare the lessons. There's activities. Everything is very easily set out so that the teachers can also have a fun time while they're at reading camp. Um, we have a schedule that we need to follow each day. There's lunch, there's recess time, there's time to go to the library at each location, there's art lessons, all that centralized around the same theme. I want to talk a little bit about a schedule. Here's a sample schedule that reading camp, one day at reading camp might look like. You begin promptly at 8 with your opening assembly, and then we have the different classes will go to different locations. So in this example, you see class 1 will go immediately to their art, class 2 will immediately go to the library, and class 3 will go into their classroom to work on reading. And they're going to be there for 45 minutes. And then the schedule shifts, and the different classes will go to different locations. Um, I want to stress the importance of following the schedule. If I'm in class 1 and I'm in art, I know the students will very much love it. I know the teachers will be excited. But if I'm supposed to leave at 9 o'clock, that means I have to be wrapping up. As the teacher, I need to be the one responsible for keeping track of time. And I need to wrap up so that when 9 o'clock comes, I'm ready to move my class out so the next class has their chance to come in. Um, as the leaders of each site come around, we need to make sure that everyone is following the schedule for several reasons. Following the schedule is important because it shows our professionalism as teachers. It says, I'm a professional. I'm going to make sure that I'm adhering to the schedule that has been designed and set and thought out carefully. It respects the time of others. If Uncle Zach's class is in the library and I say, oh, I really like it here, I want to spend 15 more minutes in here, that's taking time away from the next group who comes in. And I don't want to do that because it's robbing the children in the next group of their time in the library. And it allows for everybody to have the best experience. We really want teachers and students to have the best experience, and we need to be able to do that. And we need to allow to follow the schedule. So please, as you're going through, it's okay to speak up. If you were working with somebody who's not following the schedule, and you be polite and remind them, say, hey, Uncle Zach, we need to follow the schedule. We're 5 minutes late. You're 5 minutes late. We need to move to the next group. It's all right to say that, but please make sure we're following the schedule each day. All right. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about preparation and planning, not just for reading camp, but this is some information you can take back to your classrooms as well. So I want you to turn to someone and talk about, why is planning for a lesson or a class important? Why is that important? If we're teachers, why is planning for a class important? I'm going to give you 1 minute to talk to somebody near you. All right. So in that discussion, I'm hoping we heard things like, it's important to plan so that I know what I'm doing. It's important to plan so that my students have a good lesson. It's important to prepare and plan for a lesson because if my administrator, headmaster, headmistress walks in, they want to know what I'm doing. But for me, the most important reason why we're planning for a lesson is so that I know what it is I want my students to learn. All right. Now, I admit, when I was beginning my teaching career, I did not prepare for my lessons. And that was really bad. And it made me have to do a lot of extra work. So with that, and now my computer's not working. Hold on a minute. There we go. We're going to do this activity. This is called a think, pair, share. This is an activity you can use with students. I want you to think to yourself about the question that I have here. When I say to do it, you're going to talk to a neighbor, and then I'm going to ask only two people to come to the microphone. I want you to share the answer to this question. All right. The question is, how is embarking on a journey, how is starting a journey with no destination, how is that like planning a lesson or preparing for a class that has no goal? First, you're going to think about that to yourself. All right. Now turn to a neighbor and share how is going on a journey with no destination, like planning a lesson that has no goal. All right. Is there anybody who wants to come and share their thought on this? If not, that's okay. But does anybody want to share their answer? Don't be shy.
My name is Maria. Mohammed. Why is learn why lesson learning is why you should learn for sorry. My name is Maria. Mohammed. Why is important to start how to plan for your lesson is to help you select the appropriate teaching and learning material. To also help you to select the appropriate strategy and method for delivering your lesson.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
Take one more
Take
person.
one more person.
Hello, I'm Johanna Federwisch. Please, when you don't prepare your lesson notes, GPS from your lesson. That's it. And also, when you are embarking on the journey with no direction, you will get confused along the way. You can get lost too. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and mute
Go
the
ahead.
computer there,
Mute the
please.
computer there, please.
Excellent. You all, ladies, you are absolutely correct. If we don't prepare for a lesson, then we don't know where we're going to go. We don't know what materials we're going to use. We don't know what learning opportunities we're going to provide for our students. And then going on a journey, if I go down to try to find a trotro and I just get on any trotro, I might end up in Dansoman or I might end up all the way up in Sunyani. If I don't have an idea of where I want to go, I could end up anywhere. I'm going to get lost. The same is true when I'm working on lessons and preparing. If I don't have an idea of what I want my students to learn, then I could get lost while I'm trying to teach them. The same in, whoop, now I hear an echo. I think we're good. Okay, no more echo. All right. Very good. So it is important to prepare for lessons because it helps us as teachers and also is going to help our students learn better. So if we have no destination in mind, if we don't know what we want our students to learn, there can't be a successful plan. If there's no successful plan, we can't get to where we want to go. We can't bring our students from not knowing something to knowing something if we don't have a plan for that. And then the evidence, if we don't have some way for the students to show us that they've learned what it is we want them to learn, how do we know they've really learned it? Right? Right. So for reading camp, here's a few things that we ask all of the teachers in reading camp to do. You don't have to write and prepare the lessons. We've done that for you, but you do need to read over those lessons the night before. We don't want people coming in at 8 o'clock reading through the lesson when they're supposed to be starting it at 8 o'clock. So please read over those daily plans the night before. There are several learning experiences. There's different activities that we have suggested in there. Please decide in advance what activities you'd like to do with the poem. Take a look at the poem. Say, what are some of those activities that you would like to do with the students with that poem? Read the student books before class so that you are familiar with the story, so that you are able to read it and present it to the student very smoothly, and then practice those read aloud books. I know when I was in the classroom, because of the group, the age that I taught, I didn't do a lot of reading out loud to my students. I taught JSS is what I used to teach. So in America and JSS, you don't read a lot to your students. But in reading camp, everybody's going to, all the teachers, we're all going to be reading to students. So practice reading those read aloud books the night before, or if you have library first thing, practice reading that so that your students can hear it very clearly and that you can tell the story very, very well. All right. I'm going to share a few activities that you all can use in class for with your students. All right. But my computer's frozen again. Give me a moment. Hmm. I do not like technology. There we go. So I would like for you to again turn to someone different this time. Turn to a different colleague and ask and talk about what makes an activity engaging for students. What is something that makes an activity engaging for students? Okay. Go ahead and turn your attention back to the front, please. Raise your hand if you can hear me. All right. All right. Um, so if I'm going to say a few things, and if this is something you said, I want you to just raise your hand and show me that this is what you said in this discussion. So what makes a learning activity engaging for students? If you said it allows students to talk to one another, raise your hand if you said that. Oh, I think I think their screen froze. There we go. Raise your hand if you said the activity that is engaging is fun for students. All right. I think their computer screen keeps freezing. Okay. All right. Skip that one. Um, Something that is important, as I said earlier, we work with Reading Camp to help students read. We want them to help build literacy, is we allow them to talk to one another. And the thinking behind this, let's have students talk to one another. There's a cycle. I'm going to show you this cycle. So if I'm a student, if I can think about something, that means I can talk about it. So students have a lot of things in their minds. They think a lot of things. Sometimes we want to hear them, and sometimes students say things that we don't want to hear because they're silly. But what I can think about, I can talk about. So students are going through, if they can think about something, that's something they can talk about. And that's empowering for students to let them talk to one another. And then if they can talk about it, it's something that they're going to be able to read and write about. So here we're working on building reading and writing. And if students can read and write about it, they can talk and think about it. So you see how that cycle is connected. So one of the biggest things we can do to help students be engaged is let them talk to each other because it's going to get them thinking, much in the same way that I've asked you all to talk to one another because that's helping your minds operate. You're hearing from another person, you're getting another perspective, and it might help change our thinking. It might help fill our understanding or complete the understanding of a topic. So when we're in class, it's good to let students talk to one another about what it is we're learning. All right, this activity is the last activity I'm going to share, and I'm going to turn it over to Joanna. This activity is called See, Think, Wonder, and Know. And you can use this with any student in any subject in any level. I can use this in JSS, I can use it in senior school, I can use it in primary school. So it's very simple. Usually it's an image that we see. We're going to see a picture, or you can do it with stories. You can, this is an activity you can do with Reading Camp. You can walk through the book and have them look at different pictures in the book, and you do this activity. So the first is see. What do you see? You look at a picture, you look at something and say, what is it that I'm seeing? Then you're going to think about it. Well, I'm going to describe it. Describe what you see. What are the details that you see in whatever it is you're looking at? The next thing is you wonder. Now I'm going to say, I wonder about this. I wonder why this is like this. I wonder why that is over there. I wonder why this person or this object is doing something. And then at the end of it, after we've gone through the learning, then the last part is now. So what do I know about this now? And did my questions that I asked for my wonder part, did those turn out to be true? Did what I think turn out to be true? Do I still have questions? Right? So here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to show you all a picture. I want you to first look at it. Then I want you to describe what you see. And then I want you to wonder. I want you to ask questions. I'm going to have you do this with a partner. All right. So again, lots of partner activity this morning. So first you're going to see, I'm going to show you a picture. I want you to think about that, describe what you're seeing. What do you see in there? Look at details. And then I want you to ask questions, wondering about what it is. You're trying to figure it out, what it is I'm showing you. Okay. And then I'll show you what it is, and then we'll go from there. So give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Show me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right, here we go. Here's the picture. See, think, wonder. That's not the picture. This is the picture. Turn to somebody and tell them what you see, describe the details, and then ask questions to help you figure out what is this. If you know what this is already, keep it a secret. All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to see, think, and wonder.
Zach, are they still online?
Oh no, it looks like they have lost.
Yes.
Looks like we have lost the connection. Oh, hopefully they get back on soon.
Are you gonna pull up the slides for me? Or
I can if you want to do that, or if you, I can stop sharing. And if you have your own slides, again, I didn't change anything. I just put them into this presentation. But if you
Right.
want to go ahead and share your screen and control from your
Okay.
end, that's perfectly fine.
Perfect, I can do that.
Okay. And then, Mom, do you want to do the same thing, or do you want me to do yours?
Yeah, they just sent a notice to me, please check your network. And I go, our network is fine.
Ain't
Yeah.
my network.
Hey, this is better than when I was doing it with the kids. I mean, we lost them like every 3 minutes.
Mhm.
Oh, please.
So we've done pretty good. You know, they've stayed on for almost an hour.
Mhm.
So
Well, I'm sure Debbie and Mom know what this is. Joanna, I don't know if you ever got a chance to go here, but
Get to
I
know that.
found out it's closed. It's gone. This place is gone. They just, not only did they close it, they completely removed it.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Wow.
Wow.
It's an old Ghana plane, Airway Ghana, and they
Yep.
turned it into a restaurant. It was kind of fun to go there.
It was really cool. If you're an Av geek,
But
like I love this place, and the food was good.
is the whole airplane gone?
Yeah.
Wow, that's sad.
Completely gone.
It's a little
No, I
piece of their
didn't. I was
history.
wondering what it was. Actually, I was curious to,
That
obviously I knew it was a plane, but I wasn't sure if it was like their own um like line of airline that was, just first class. Like this could be the first class part.
Mhm.
So wasn't sure.
Yeah,
no,
well, those are the old 1980s era first class seats on a Ghana Airways DC-10.
That's awesome.
Ghana Airways ceased in, I think, 2009. 2010 is when they actually lost their operating certificate.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we had a whole group from the States with Maryland Episcopal Cursillo booked to go to Ghana, all booked on Ghana Airways, and they at the last minute had to scramble and get other flights because the airline shut down.
yeah, basically the US shut them down because the plane was unsafe. They wouldn't let it, they shut it down on a runway in New York and wouldn't even let it leave.
Yep.
So,
Wow. Then it's probably really unsafe if that happened.
Yeah, but just it wasn't up to Western standards. And well, they had their own internal stuff too. Lots of corruption within the airline itself. Notorious for leaving early. Like there's flights that would leave 3 hours early, and people would get to the airport 2 hours before the flight, like you're supposed to, and the plane would be gone. It'd be like, oh no, you have to wait for another week for the next flight.
Oh,
So yeah, just all kinds of stuff that makes you go, well, like, who's running the show here?
yeah, exactly.
Excuse me.
so this whole thing is being recorded. So
Oh,
what
okay.
I ask is even if they don't get back on, we're going to continue with you guys doing
Hey,
your
Calvin, you leaving? Yeah. Hang on just a half a second. Let me unmute myself here. Sorry, guys. Our Zoom connection in Africa dropped. So on the checkout instructions, the two things were to strip your bed and leave the sheets at the foot.
So Debbie, you're wanting us to just continue on to keep talking?
yeah, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, if they don't come.
I mean, I just told them come back in and he said, okay. And yet I don't see them up and running yet. And they may have totally lost their internet, didn't have enough, I'm, this is not good. I'm not pleased with how they're handling it today, mostly because they should have been in earlier to check everything out.
Well, we'll see. No promises. But if we do this next year, I might be able to sneak away for a weekend and just go to Ghana and help do it face to face.
Yeah,
Maybe. We'll see.
we will be there face to face next year. So
I've got to renew my passport. It's the first time since I've had a passport since I was 13 that I've not had a valid passport. Expired in June, and I just haven't renewed it.
Zach, are you the administrator for an elementary school district?
I am the administrator for well, my title, I didn't put it up there because they wouldn't understand. I'm senior coordinator for world languages and ESL. So I oversee all of the ESL program for Norfolk Public Schools. So that's K through 12th grade for every English learner in our school division. And I oversee the foreign language program. So I've
Nice,
got about 80 teachers or so, 80 teachers that report to me.
nice.
So I've actually we have a big summer leadership institute next week that I'm preparing for all the school division principals, all the school leadership, the superintendent, the school board members.
Yep.
So
Nice.
Yeah, good times.
It's a lot. I know. I was an administrator for, I was an assistant principal. That was my last job in education, but
Okay.
um, I got out.
Did you do elementary school?
No, high school, middle. Honestly, it was so I was an AP, my first AP job. I was at the biggest school in the nation. We had over 4,000 students, high school kids.
Nope.
Um, yeah, so
Mhm.
it was our campus was 96 acres. Um, I was actually pregnant with the twins then, so it was a little crazy. And it was a very low socioeconomic area, so very gang infested.
Uh,
Um, it was nuts. It was absolutely crazy, but I really liked it actually.
yeah.
That was my favorite position. And I did teach for a long time too, middle school. So
That's what I taught. Middle school was my favorite. I taught middle
me
school
too.
French for 12 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and the school
Yeah,
that I
I
was at,
love middle school.
I was in Virginia Beach for 10 years at the middle school. And at the time when I started, it was the largest middle school in the, I don't think it was the largest middle school in the country. I know it was the largest middle school in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And when I first started, our student population was like 1,900 kids
Wow.
in a middle school
That's a
with
lot
like,
of middle schoolers.
yeah, whoever designed that and decided that was a good idea was out of their mind. But
Yeah,
actually, it ran
exactly.
really well. They did a very great job. They kind of ran it as a school within a school. The grade levels didn't mix except at dismissal.
Nice. Yeah, I love if I went back, I would teach middle school again. That's
Oh,
my
absolutely.
sweet spot.
Yeah. No, if I went back into the
Uh,
classroom, I was keep telling my
no,
wife, if I win the lottery,
MTN's network is down.
okay. So,
So sorry. Let me finish a message to her. Um, I don't know what to tell them because there's not a thing we can do from this end.
did they have their reading camp materials there that they could start looking through?
Yeah, they can do that. Yeah, she's got all that stuff. So sorry. Um, we we're going to continue.
Mhm.
Okay. I just told her that we're going to continue. If their network comes back up, then pop on. We'll go until your 2 sessions are finished. And then we'll we'll call it at that point.
Okay.
Okay. So did you want to end with anything, Zach?
Well, I'm gonna finish this little activity, and then I think the next thing was then I was gonna switch it over to Joanna.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm gonna continue now. Like they're still here. So, all right. After we see, we think, we share. So I'm seeing. It looks. What do I see? I see chairs. I see men. I see um, what looks like windows. I see a table. So I might wonder things like, I wonder what kind of chairs those are. They look like not regular chairs. I wonder why the walls look like they're curved and bent. I wonder why the men look like they're wearing uniforms for an airplane. So those are all things I'm wondering. And as I'm wondering and thinking, I might start to make connections. The answer then, once now that we're gonna go to the no section, is this is the La Tante DC-10 restaurant that's outside the airport in Accra. So in doing this activity, it allows students to explore on their own. It helps them to make meaning. It helps them think a little creatively to get them wondering and thinking on their own as they learn and explore whatever topic or whatever it is I'm sharing with them as the teacher. So we're going to turn it over to Joanna now. Johanna. And Johanna, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can start sharing yours. And you're muted right now.
I clicked on it and it didn't come off, but thank you for telling me. I would have been going for a little bit. All right, I'm going to share my screen. See, can you see it, Zach? Because I
Yes.
can't for some reason because I have dual screen, so I don't. It's not showing up on mine.
I
Okay,
can, yes,
You guys
I
can
can
see
see
it?
it. Yep. But it's
Perfect.
in the like the builder mode, so I can't, it's not on the slideshow mode.
Right. I'm going to do a slideshow right now.
Sure.
Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see.
There you
Okay,
go.
is that good?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. I was really hoping to be able to interact with you a little bit, but I'm going to go over some really key important things with you on literacy and vocabulary development, which is crucial for most of the kids that you're teaching. Even if you're teaching middle school, a lot of the tips on here you guys can use as well. You just have to kind of tweak it a little bit. We are going to email you this slideshow that so that you have it, because I do have some resources on here for you at the end to help you with uh, looking things up that might be helpful for you. I found a couple of really good resources. My educational background is actually more middle school and high school. I'm 7th through 12th certified. So, but when I was in Ghana last year, one of the biggest things that I noticed when I was in my classroom with the kids and even with a lot of the adults that I encountered was we needed to focus a little bit more on vocabulary and literacy. And so we're going to really dive into that. I'm giving you several tips that will help you with this. So we're going to just dive right into it. Um, so one of the things that you guys can work on with your students is visual memory. So it's it helps the kids to build a connection so that way it again it says visual memory, but it helps them to make the connection so that that way when they're thinking of it they can have that visual that pops in their head. For me that is very much the style of learning that I have. I'm very visual, and so a lot of your students are going to be visual as well. But regardless, it helps to kind of cover all the learning styles. So it's the ability to remember what has been seen, and it is important for learning. So when you do have the kids in the lower grades, having those sight words in your classroom are very important. So if for each grade level that they're in, having those sight words just around your classroom, if you could have index cards, that's what we tend to use here in our classrooms in the United States, but we use index cards and we put the sight words out so that we can point to them anytime and have the kids look at it and memorize it. So if you can have a sight word chart in your classroom, that's perfect. Even if you're just taping it to the wall, if you're taping it to your chalkboard or whatever it is, that's very helpful for the students. And especially when you are teaching the lessons like the books that you're going to be going over through the summer camp, those sight words are super helpful if you want to tape those up in your classrooms. The next two things I'm going to talk about, it actually said visual discrimination and auditory discrimination. I know we don't like those words, but it's really the ability to see the differences, and that's why it's titled that way. So visual discrimination is it's able to tell exactly like what it says on there, the differences between B and D. I know when my kids were little, they really struggled with that, the differences. And so seeing it and writing it and even talking about it, but also being in the words in the same word together as as the example that's on here for you is bad and dad. Those are very easy to get kind of mixed up, jumbled up. And so you really do need to make sure you're explaining the differences visually and saying it out loud so that they can hear it. So visual differences and then auditory differences. So make sure you're saying it very clearly with them. So B, like say it several times. D, so that way they can distinguish between the two. And that will definitely help them for future, growing on their vocabulary and their literacy. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. One of the really good things that you can do, and especially at this summer camp, the reading camp, is retelling the story. So once you read or tell a story to the children, when you're reading the books, have them retell the story back to you. Excuse me. They might be able to just retell the main idea, or the middle or the end of the story, but have them try to retell the whole story. So giving you details. So kind of exactly what Zach was just talking about with the airplane. Like what are the wonders of the plane? What are the things that are on the plane that we're kind of wondering about? Or what even gives you the idea that it was the plane? So some of the kids may have never seen an airplane. So give them the ideas, show them the ideas, talk about the ideas, have them retell the story to you or in groups, small groups with each other. Have them retell the whole story. Have them retell the stories frequently because then that starts to give them the memorization as well. Also have them predict the sequence. So as the story is being told, kids should be able to predict or guess what will happen next. So if you're going on to another book, or another story with them, maybe stop 2/3 of the way and then ask them to predict the rest of the story. For example, so you can, whatever story that you are reading, or even if you're having library time, grab a book if you're reading to the kids and just, again, even halfway through, ask them to, oh, yay, there you guys are. Raise your hand if you can hear me. Yay, hi. Oh, it's so good to see you guys. Um, we had to stop obviously because you guys weren't on, but I was going through the lesson, so I'm just going to kind of try to keep going through it. We're going to send you this Zoom presentation. I'm also going to see, or Debbie's going to email you guys my PowerPoint presentation so you have it. So that way you can, go back on it. There's some resources for you guys to look at within that. So, but I'm going to continue going with this so that way we're not backtracking. Anyway, so I was at predicting the sequence. So when you're reading the stories and the books to the kids during the camp and anytime in your classrooms, have the students predict or guess what is coming next in the story. It also gives them, it helps them use their imagination, but it's going to get them talking about what's in the story so far, what have they seen, what kind of clues they have to predict the story. That helps with literacy because the more words that they're grasping from or trying to use and pulling from, the more that they're going to be able to build on that for the future. The next one is cause and effect. So having the kids do cause and effect is actually a higher level thinking skill, and they can start that now. And you can teach that to them now. So it's the knowledge about why something happens and then what action led to the consequence. So you can use multiple, examples with them, but it's always in a story, right? So what was the action that happened and then what was the consequence or what happened after that? So, if in the United States here, if I decide to run a stoplight, a red light, then there could be an action behind that with a police officer pulling me over and giving me a ticket, or there might be a camera on our stoplight. So those are the consequences, right? So that I might even get a ticket in the mail. So those are consequences. That was the cause and effect. There's consequences to every action we have, every action we take, right? Good or bad. And so when you start pulling from that with the students, especially in their stories, then they can start making better predictions too. So once they see the causes, they can start making the better predictions for the stories. Let's see. I'm going to go on to the next one. All right, picture reading. This is huge, especially with the elementary level. Picture reading is a very big deal. And even with I'm going to piggyback on what Zach was just showing you guys. He showed you a picture and asked you to kind of think about it, look at what was there, ask the questions, get the kids thinking. And so that also is very much a part of what you're going to be doing during the summer reading camp. So this happens when the child can read the story and understand it just by looking at the pictures, right? They can make inferences on that. They can answer questions related to the story based on the pictures. So a child can learn to like deduce from the pictures. Let's just say that exactly like what the picture is that Zach had was the airplane. We knew it was an airplane because it was the curved windows. We saw the seats that were you would see in an airplane, especially, well, I mean, not now probably, but um several years ago. So you can make inferences, and the kids can do that too. So what time of day is it? Is it outside or inside? Is it cold or is it hot? So they can start making all of those inferences and basically coming up with a story based on what the pictures are looking like, right? So one of the examples I have here for you guys is, and we were going to do some of this, but because we're going in and out, I just want to just talk about it. But you can have the students just make a picture book. Have them make a storybook with using only pictures. So have them um, create, let's just say some a story that you guys typically use there. I know, like for us when we're young, we learn about Cinderella, so that's one of the fairy tales that we learn about, and so we can make a storybook based of that. You can have them make a storybook based on what their day at school is like. You can have them make a storybook based on what their morning routine is. Do they get up, brush their teeth, have breakfast, talk to their parents? Do they ride the bus to school? Do they ride a bus? Do they ride, on a motorbike? So you can make all of those. You could have them make a storybook on all of those things. And then if you're doing middle school, I did this with my middle schoolers a lot. I taught history, so I would have them make a storybook based on something that we just read in history or we talked about in history. And it's really fun for them because it gives them their artistic side, the kids who have their artistic abilities. You're allowing them to utilize that, and then you're also challenging them to do it without words. So it's a great way. And then you can have them come up and actually explain the book when they're done. So it's a great way to get them thinking about it. The next thing is visual literacy. And that is exactly what we're talking about. It's based on pictures or an image. So the student being able to understand it, what they're seeing, being able to talk about it, using their language skills. So let's just say there was a mountain and there was a bear on the mountain. So if they see the bear on the mountain, have them talk about it. Don't just allow them to say, oh, that's a mountain, or and that's a bear. What is the bear doing? What color is the mountain? Like, just pull from the conversation, pull as much detail as you can out of them, and that builds their literacy skills. Matching is a skill that most kids are good at. We always want to make patterns in our brains. And so matching games are great. So if you guys have any matching games for them, and I can even send you a link on matching games, how to do it, even if you just have paper and pencils, or you can make your own matching games. But matching is great. And focusing on detail, like I was saying, is that if you have a picture of something, ask them as many questions you can about the picture to get them thinking about it. It also brings out words that they may not know. So they may not know the word autumn or winter or summer. Because I don't know, you guys are a lot like us. I live in Florida. We really only have 2 seasons a year. So we don't get winter. So the kids here don't really understand what a true winter is like. I don't think you guys have that either. So pulling from that, if they see snow, showing them snow, seeing what snow is. So having that detail. Having kids literally like giving as much detail as they can, have them start to write letters. So have them write a letter to you explaining how their day is, or how their day was. What did they do? And make them give, you could even set it to where they give you have your rubric based as they're giving you at least 10 details about their day, or 20, whatever you want to include in that, but you're giving them the rubric and you're giving them the idea that they have to give you tons of detail, lots of detail, which is extremely beneficial and obviously creating that whole literacy pattern. All right. This was a big thing last year when, and that's because you're teaching English. So it's going to sound different for you than it does for us. And just like as if we would go to Great Britain, it sounds, their English is very different, right, than ours. So sound awareness is huge. So when you are saying something to the students, have them really enunciate the words. So when you're saying bear, a lot of kids will say bear, but they won't say bear with the R, right? So have them try to enunciate it for them, right? So the give them the word and then have them say it over and over and over and enunciate it and hear it in their minds too. You have a lot of students who are going to be the way of learning is to hear things. That's my son. He's an auditory learner. So the more that you can say it, the more you can show a visual, and the more that you can have them write about it, that will help with their literacy patterns. Okay. Rhyming is really good for the younger kids, rhyming as much as you can. Make your own rhyming song together. So have the kids just make their own rhyming song. You can come up with it together, write it up on the chalkboard, and then you sing it over and over and over. So that's very helpful as well. Okay, letter knowledge. So again, what I was saying is that for the younger grades, it's just knowing what the letters are, making sure they know what the letters are. How to form letters, how to put them together, right? Here in the United States, we have, and I don't know if you guys have these, but they're little magnetic letters, and we usually have those as when we're little. But then even cutting out letters, if you have like a kindergarten or first class, having them write letters or giving them letters to like cut out and put those together, that would be very helpful for you. Name recognition. Basically, if you can have the kids, not only can they have the letters, but can they recognize what the letter is and then what the sound is? So then having them have the sounds, having them say it in a small group with each other, all the sounds. And then also pattern recognition, which is kind of what we just talked about. All right. Phonological awareness is when the child can hear specific sounds in a word, and then breaking up the sounds to put them back together again. So when they're actually just sounding out the words, and then putting it together to formulate the words. Spatial orientation is when children understand how their body functions in space. So when they can physically orient themselves, and they can apply this to reading and writing. So spacing out their letters on the page, spacing out everything exactly the way it's supposed to be. And again, that's more for the younger grades. I'm trying to go through this kind of quickly because I want to get into some other things, but all right, so the oral language skills are highly correlated to future reading ability. So the more that you can speak to your students and explain things to them, the more that they're going to be able to practice that as well and then gain on their literacy skills. So, for example, if you are, for number one, it's basically restating. So if a child just says milk, that's what they wanted, then you would say, I want milk, please. So like kind of expand that sentence to make it to be more of, what they should be saying, right? So just expanding on it. So if they said the baby's crying, and so you would say, why, you could even ask questions. Why is the baby crying? Well, the baby is hurt, so the baby's crying. So the more you can speak to the students and pull from them and get more information from them, the better off it will be for them to gain more literacy, right? Okay. So now last year when I was in the classroom with you guys, one of the biggest things was with the books that we had, I know that it was some of the words were very foreign to the students and to the teachers too, which is fine because I mean, if you don't know what it is, then how are you supposed to teach your students, right? So what we would do is we would talk about, we would read the book. So as Zach was saying earlier, you're going to make sure you're going over your lesson, reading your book before you're presenting your book, right? So then if you don't understand a word, if you're not understanding a word, then what you're going to do is you're going to write that word out, look it up. So we were looking it up on our phones with either we were looking at YouTube. So let's say example, we were looking up a brown bear. We were looking up exactly what that is. What does it look like? So we asked the students, what words in this book do you not know, what it is? One of them was the bear. So we pulled up the bear. We showed the kids on the phone what the bear is. That's really the only time you guys should really have your phones out, but we were trying to show the kids, what does a bear look like? What does it do? So if you look up on YouTube what a bear is, because that's what's in this story, that's the word that they're learning about, that's the poem that they're saying and the song that they're singing. So we're looking up the bear. So now the kids have a visual of what the bear is. What is it, right? There were some other words in there that it's not a word you might use, but it's a word we might use. And so you need to look up several meanings of it so that you could explain what that means to your students, right? So ultimately, look over your book, take out all the words that you're not clear on, what words you're not really 100% understanding, and then find the meanings of those. Then ask your students to do the same thing. So that way the book makes sense to them. By the end of the book, then once you go over all of those words, all of the vocabulary, that will make sense to them. That will help them. That will help you. So then once you have introduced that to the class, like your books, once you introduce that to your classroom and you introduce all those words, then the kids will have more clarity reading it. So I hope that that makes sense. The next thing is, so we also have to be learners ourselves, right? As teachers, we have to be learners. So the best way to teach vocabulary to yourself as well as your students is to focus on the meanings, not just the definition, but it could mean several things. I was gonna do some different things with you guys, but I'm worried that we're gonna disconnect. But anyways, so what you will do is you will promote the usage of words. So when the kids are speaking the words, promote their usage of words, review words with them, make sure you know the definitions for them, practice using the words, use games and activities that like I just explained and kind of went over to help reinforce the vocabulary. And then lastly, I wanted to tell you guys a resource it's huge is Pinterest. I don't know. Raise your hand if you guys have Pinterest on your phones, if any of you have the app Pinterest at all. Okay, so Pinterest is a great application to use. I mean, I use it for a lot of things, but you can type in if you download it, you can type in teaching first grade, teaching second grade, teaching vocabulary. It will come up with thousands of websites for you to look at to give you ideas, games to use in your classroom, all kinds of fun things. And if that doesn't work, and if you can't get onto Pinterest, then use YouTube. That will help you immensely as well. On this slideshow, there's several books and articles here that will help you on teaching vocabulary and literacy. So again, we're going to share that with you. And I am getting ready to pass this over to Miss Becki, but ultimately the students that you teach are only going to be as successful as you prepare for them. And there's countless resources online. And just enjoy the kids, enjoy what you're doing with the kids, read to them, help them learn to read. That's going to be their biggest asset. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. And I will end my slideshow here. And I wish I was there with you guys. I see a lot of familiar faces, but thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Johanna, for doing that. I know it's difficult for you in Ghana because of the timing here. I know that the internet going in and out, your faces would freeze for a while. So I'm sorry if we're rushing through this a little bit. We're just trying to be cognizant of the fact that you could lose internet at any moment. And I will share, this is actually being videotaped, and I will share with Kate the video, and she can see that it gets out to any of you. Maybe I might try to put it on YouTube so it'll be easier for you guys to find. With that, I'm actually going to, number one, you see Zach's little girl is here. So, hey, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you. Wow.
Like a pet.
I see, and you're really growing up, getting so tall. Well, we're going to move on with your grandma's piece. So we're going to introduce Becki and just go right on with Becki while we have internet. So please welcome Becki Neumann.
Hey, it's so good to see everybody there. I miss being there this summer. I have to say hi to Sophia though, because I'm her Gigi. Sophia, good morning. Say,
Good morning.
Okay.
okay,
She's getting her little pig.
there you go. I'll see you next week. I'm going to start off, Zach, if you will share your screen again and fast forward then to where my slides start. Again, I've just got so much open on my computer right now because I'm here in North Carolina this week working at a camp for teenagers. And today's the last day, so I'm all set for them. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to be talking about creativity in the classroom. Can you all hear me okay? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, very good, very good. Okay, you know, in our reading camp plans, we always include some art activities. And one of the reasons is because art is a way that helps to stimulate a student's brain and helps them with creativity. Reading, when we read, what we're using in our brain is mostly our left brain. And art uses mostly our right brain. Our brains have two halves that are joined in the middle. So reading is a left-brained activity. Art is mostly a right-brained activity. So if we can have an art activity that goes with the reading, it uses the whole brain and helps students to remember what they're reading more. So one of our art activities this year will be on the first day, you're making a friendship spider. The poem for that day, I believe, is friends, friends, 1, 2, 3. All
Yes.
my friends that we sing, right? Friends, friends, 1, 2, 3. All my friends are here with me. You're my friend, you're my friend, you're my friend, you're my friend. Friends, friends, 1, 2, 3. All my friends are here with me. And we thought this would be something simple you need that that the children could make. It's 2 sheets of construction paper or white paper, and Uncle Bruce, who he had to leave while the internet was down, he was going to wave. So he might get back before we sign off. But there are directions for how to make this, but this is what it looks like when it's finished. It's got folded legs on which the children write their names. Uncle Bruce made this, so he said Uncle Zach and Auntie Kate. Okay, this leg's a little crunched because it was in my bag to bring it here with me to where I am. So that's one of the craft activities, and there are directions. I didn't put a picture in the slides, but there you go. Okay, there are some directions there. I think that will make it clear. One of the days you're making a spider web, and there's some directions for that. So you'll have directions in your teacher packet that will show you what to do. That's why we're including art activities, because it does stimulate that right half of the brain and helps us with creativity and using the whole brain. Before I go into the rest of my presentation, let me just say this year the lesson plans are a little different. They're arranged differently. And they're different because everything is not planned out exactly for you. You will need to read, as Uncle Zach said, read the plan the night before, and you will have to make some choices about what vocabulary words you're going to be focusing on. Since we're not bringing the same books for every village, for every child. So there will be one book in one village and a different book in a different village. And so it's just the directions say, choose some words from the book for your children to learn and make vocabulary cards. You can use a sheet of plain paper to make a vocabulary card. It doesn't have to be an index card. So you'll be having to look the night before so that you prepare that material. Since we're not bringing big copies of the poems or paper. So you'll need to find the biggest paper you can find and make yourself a bigger copy of the poem or the song so that you have that to use with the children in your lesson plans. And because the books are different from village to village, the activity that you do with the book will be different, and you'll need to think about what it is you want to do. If you have a book for your children that is about elephants, you'll think what in their journal, in their notebook, what could they do about that story? Could they draw an elephant? Could we talk together and figure out what we know about elephants, real elephants? So you'll need to be thinking and filling in the blanks in the lesson plan. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because then it will be as much your plan as it is the plan that I've prepared for you. And something just shifted, and that was really weird. Okay. All righty, Zach, go ahead to the next slide. There we go. So I want to spend a little time talking about creativity. Ghanaian culture, Ghanaian people are creative people. You create beautiful fabrics as we go around, traveling around Accra and out into the villages. There are buildings that show creative uses of materials. Okay, there are beautiful wood carvings. There's the music in your churches and the bands that play it and the organs that play it. There's beautiful music in your culture. And so overall, Ghanaian people are a creative people. So we want to pull on that creative part of our personalities and use that in our classroom so that we can be pulling that creativity out of our students, okay? Helping students to be creative engages more of their mind than just, say, memorizing a list of words or memorizing number facts. If we can put some creativity into it, it engages more of the brain, and what we're teaching will stick better, and it will make the students more excited about learning. As teachers, as Uncle Zach said, as teachers, we need to have a lesson plan so that we know where we're headed. This is what I want my children to learn from this lesson today. In the United States, in many areas, in many classrooms, the teacher is required to write their goal or their objective on the chalkboard or on the blackboard, on the whiteboard. It needs to be posted. So if I'm teaching a book about spiders or a poem about spiders, I need to write up on the chalkboard what do I want the children to learn from this? With our poems and our songs, we want the children to learn basic sight vocabulary. We want them to learn to read fluently because they're touching the words and singing the song or saying the poem in a fluent manner. So, excuse me, I'm in North Carolina, not my home state, and I have a lot of allergy stuff going on today, and I have been. Creativity. On the screen, I hope you can see the screen clearly. There is, in the middle, there is the word creativity, and then there are some bubbles going out from that. So as teachers, we want to be thinking, Zach, I don't think I can do this because you're sharing screen. No, go back. There you go. Stay right there for a minute. There's a way you can highlight and touch the bubble, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. Sorry, train off the track. Inspiration, creativity inspires our students. It gets them excited about learning. Vision, we want to help children have a vision. There we go. We want children to have a vision for not just what they're learning in this lesson, but a vision that says learning is fun and learning is part of my future. It's not just part of my right now. Learning is a lifelong process. We want our children to understand that learning is something that is exciting through our whole life. And to come on around to idea, we want to value children's ideas. Okay, as teachers, we might have good ideas and we want to share this, but we want to draw ideas from our children, from our students, because they will have good ideas too. And then brainstorm. And that's that process of getting children to think outside the box. Let's just list ideas about this topic and see what we come up with. And then mind. This again, we're using our whole mind, not just our left brain, which is more logical, reading, learning alphabet, numbers. But we also want to make sure we're using our whole mind. So that means the right half of our brain, where we want to be artistic and creative and more fluid in our thinking of possibilities. And then imagination. We want to engage the students' imaginations, right? That will make learning even more fun. Boy, Zach, you were doing a great job. You're hired. I love the hearts. Innovation. We all have set ways that we do things, but we want to be thinking, what's a different way? What's a new way? Can we take the old way and add something to it to make it a better way? You know, this is how things are invented and created. Somebody back in the I guess the 50s or 60s had this thought about about the beginnings of computer science, and then in the 1980s, computers went from being the size of a whole house, at least this little house I'm sitting in, to the size of, our phone, right? Your phone is, if you've got internet on your phone is a computer. And it has more power than those computers that used to fill a whole room. Because somebody was innovating. They continued to think things through and to develop new ideas. We want to teach our students to think, we call it thinking outside the box, to think of new ways to do things. And then motivation. Creativity is very motivating for students because it's not like, oh, we're going to do this again, right? We want them to come at a lesson being excited. So being, as teachers, to be innovative, think of new ways to do things, that sparks motivation in our students. And all of this increases knowledge, which is that last bubble there. Yep, where Zach is putting stars for me. Thank you, Zach. Yes, knowledge. All of the things around that word creativity come together in the word knowledge, because knowledge is increased when we are creative in our approach. So we always want to have in mind the different aspects of creativity so that we can be planning lessons that will engage a student's whole mind and help them walk away with even more learning and excitement about their learning. It's not just how much they're learning, but are they excited about their learning and about what they're going to learn in the next lesson and the next lesson. That's what has kept, me, I retired from teaching, wow, like a long time ago. 1990 something. So 30 years, almost 30 years ago. And yet I still read and learn about education because it's something I'm interested in. And I want to be able to motivate the people around me to be lifelong learners. That's really our goal for students, that they will learn through their whole lives, not just today while they're in the classroom. Okay, Zach, go to the next slide. Thank you. Oh, wow. Now we've got like things on the screen. I love it. That is creative, right? It's making the slide even more interesting. So what is a creative learning environment? And I had hoped to have some dialogue about this, to have you turn and talk and then share ideas. But again, because of the internet situation, maybe after we're all finished, you'd like to come back and talk about what is a creative learning environment. I'm just going to press ahead. The first thing we might think of as well, a creative learning environment is visually pleasing. Wow. Okay. Zach is giving me information. He says 1999 is when you retired from teaching. August of 1999, you dropped me at college and you at seminary. So 1999, coming up on 30 years. It's been a while, right? A creative learning environment, though, is more than visual. Yes, we want to have things. Did we lose? Okay, I'll keep going. Do we want to have things on? We want to have things on the wall. I know in Ghana, you have challenges with that. Here we can buy things. There it's harder to buy things because you don't have as many things, teacher things, and money is a little more scarce. Another challenge I know in Ghana is with your humid climate, getting things to stay on the wall can be hard. But choose a few things to make the classroom interesting. Johanna talked about putting words, those sight words on the wall. In the US, we have something called a word wall in most classrooms, where the Those words that the children are learning are posted on little cards or pieces of paper on the wall. You could have a word wall that has to do with the book they're reading, the story they're reading, the science projects they're working on, the social studies lesson that they're being taught. You can have a math word wall where you have words for younger children, you'd have plus, minus, sum, subtract, add, more, less. But you could have a math word wall. So that's one way to add interest to your classroom. And then those words are always in front of the children. But the visual part is not the only part that makes for a creative learning environment. A creative learning environment is one that really engages the children. What I'm doing right now with you is not creating a creative learning environment because I'm doing all the talking and you're needing to do all the listening. And that's not the best way to teach. But we want to get material to you, and this is the way we can do it with the internet situation. So we ask the children for their ideas. And then we listen to what they have to say. And even if they say something crazy, we try to, we validate it. We don't go, oh no, that's wrong, because that shuts down creativity. Now, I'm almost 70, but I remember when I was 10 years old and I was in 5th grade, so class 5, my teacher asked the class to name some appliances in your house that get hot. Could you all hear that? Name some appliances that get hot. So people said the stove, the fire, an iron. I raised my hand and I said, the refrigerator. And all of the children laughed. Every one of them laughed at me. But the teacher was smart. She was creative. And she said, what made you say the refrigerator? Because of course, refrigerators get cold. And I said, well, if you put your hand on the back of the refrigerator or on the top of the refrigerator feels hot. And so she said, you are absolutely right. Refrigerators can get hot. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She took a minute to think through and ask me questions and help to validate my answer that refrigerators are appliances that get hot. So we ask children for their ideas and we help to get behind their thinking. If they give an answer that's not what we're expecting, ask questions to get inside their thinking, right? A creative learning environment encourages students to take risks. And see, that's what that teacher did for me. She didn't say, no, I was wrong. She asked me questions. Students in a creative learning environment will take risks. They learn through trial and error. That means it needs to be okay to make mistakes. You know, one of the things through the years of coming to Ghana, and I've been there over, I don't know how many times, but I think I first came in, Debbie would know, 2003 or 4 or 7. It's been a while ago. One of the things I noticed was if a children gives a wrong answer, the teacher is very quick to say, no, that's wrong. That does not encourage a child to take risks. If my teacher in class 5 had said, no, your answer is wrong, I might never have raised my hand to answer questions again. We want to create a place where children can learn through trial and error. So they can try things out. They can have a wrong guess and they're not made to feel small or stupid. We do not permit the other children to laugh at mistakes. They will laugh, but we need to say, no, let's listen and hear what the thinking is there. We want children to think and use their imaginations. Children have wonderful imaginations. You know, when we drive through the villages in Ghana, I see children making up their own games. I mean, the children can take an old tire and a stick and just have a wonderful time making up a game with those things, just things that lay around. Children have wonderful imaginations. Let's use that in the classroom to get them imagining things, and not just giving like one set answer. A creative learning environment encourages children to solve problems, to think critically and solve problems. It's not a classroom where the teacher always gives the answer to a problem. It's a classroom where children work together. Earlier, Zach was talking about the importance of having children talk, because when they talk together to solve a problem, then they're increasing their vocabulary. Again, they're engaging more of their brain, and so they are going to remember more, they're going to learn more. Johanna talked about the importance of developing our children's vocabulary, permitting them to talk, not just talk, but talk about a topic that you've given them, or talk to solve a problem that you've given them. That increases their vocabulary, and that will also increase their learning. We want to be sure to set goals, not just our goals that we have for our lesson, but help the children to set goals. Okay, today we're going to be working with, I mean, I'm looking around, I'm sitting in somebody else's house, not my own. Right, today we're going to be working with the color blue, right? Okay, blue pen. We're going to be working with the color blue. So what's our goal? Let's set some goals, boys and girls, for the color blue. Well, at the end of our time talking about blue, let's think of that we want to have 5 things that are always blue. We want to be able to tell 5 things that are sometimes blue. We want to be able to tell 5 things that are never blue. Okay, so we're setting some goals with the children so that they know what to expect and that they're working toward the same goal we are. We want to share our knowledge. We want the children to share knowledge with each other. You know, those children, those students in your classroom, they come with knowledge from their homes and their backgrounds. We want them to talk to each other and share that. In a creative learning environment, children build relationships with their teacher and with each other, and that makes for a richer learning experience. It's a place where children can develop and test their own ideas, where it's not always the teacher giving his or her ideas. So those are just some thoughts about a creative learning environment. Zach, would you change the slide, please? Here we go to the next. Oops, that was 2. There we go. In the picture here, I have picture of 2 classrooms. Now, these are United States classrooms. So I know they don't look quite like where you are, but we can learn some things here. We have the classroom on the left, which is plain walls, straight rows. We have a classroom on the right, which has the desks arranged in tables, right, pushed together. Those are not tables, they're individual desks that are pushed together. And there's some word walls and some things going on. You know, I think it's clear, but which is the more creative learning environment, right? Which is the creative learning environment? The one on the left or the one on the right? You all can, I won't be able to hear you, but you can point. Point to the right if it's the one on the right, point to the left if it's the one on the left. Can you use your hands? Put them up high so I can see them, right? Don't be shy, right? Right or left? There we go, okay. So the classroom on the right is definitely the more creative learning environment. The way we arrange our room, yes, thank you, Zach. The way we arrange our room can foster creativity in children. In that classroom on the left, it would be very hard to talk to people, to talk to your fellow classmates, to share ideas or to solve a problem. The classroom on the right, everything is arranged so the children can collaborate. They can work together to come up with solutions. They can turn and talk to each other. I mean, there might be times when we need to have our desks in rows for a purpose, but overall, it's much more effective with children, I'm talking elementary age children, but even middle school children, right? And high school students who also need to have the opportunity to talk with each other, not just to chat, but to talk with a purpose. Okay, talking is learning. We want them to talk with a purpose. The classroom on the right would be, would lend itself far more to that kind of learning than the classroom on the left. So seating students in groups is a helpful thing in terms of creating a creative learning environment and not keeping the groups the same, right? We can, have them this way, like on the right for a couple of weeks and then change it around and, change the tables around, move the desks, move the students from place to place so that we are mixing the groups up and creating new opportunities for new relationships and new collaboration. Okay, Zach, go on to the next one. There we are. Again, a creative learning environment means that students work in teams to solve problems and to find new ways to learn. So the idea of working together with children in the classroom is really important if we're really trying to get children to be creative and to take in more material and to learn it better. Another advantage to children working together and talking, again, talking with a purpose, not just talking, is that it really will increase their vocabulary. We've talked on this in other years that the children in Ghana are handicapped by so many things when it comes to learning to read. They do not have, you don't have big libraries, in every little town where we live, there's a library. It might be a little library, but there's a library. Our schools have big, beautiful libraries. So your children don't have access to books and printed materials. That's a handicapping condition. And they learn to read in English, and in the villages, they don't speak English in their home. So they're learning to read in a foreign language. And so giving them opportunities to speak in English, to learn English vocabulary is just so important, because the more words that they can speak in English and the more ideas they can express in English, the better their reading will become when they're reading in English. That's why Johanna talked about activities and ways to build vocabulary, just speaking vocabulary in your children. Totally important to do. A creative thing to do with that is to start a story. Okay, start a story. Your children are all sitting there and you say, okay, the person in the first seat starts the story. You might give them like an animal. Let's make a story about a zebra. There's zebras on the wall above me here. Let's make a story about a zebra. First person starts, I saw a zebra, and the second person says, and he was in the grass, and the third person says, and he had stripes, and you just keep the story going with everybody adding a piece of the story. They're using words, they're learning about story and working together. Okay, so start a story. Working together. They can do that as a whole class, but you could put them in groups at their table, and they could do that with how many children are there? 5 children. 5 children. Okay, let's work to make a story, give each table a different animal. Okay, this table makes a story about a bear. That table makes a story about a zebra. That table makes a story about a dog. And then at the end of the time, they share their stories. They keep track of their story, and they share their story, and then we get to hear stories about animals. An activity that's creative, involves the students in talking, and helps to develop their English vocabulary, because they will never ever read past what they're able to speak in English. We need to be working to get them speaking English and gaining English vocabulary. Okay. Zach, go on to the next one. So this is a picture that I found on the internet. I have no idea what the teacher had planned in terms of a lesson. But here's some things that I started thinking about when I saw it. Okay. First of all, the teacher had a plan, and they had planned ahead. So maybe this teacher had drawn that circle and those landforms. Clearly the children are painting the boats, but so maybe the teacher is teaching about the earth is made, might be a geography lesson or a geology lesson, science lesson, but they're teaching, okay, there's land and there's water. And some things live on land and happen on land, and other things live in the water and happen on the water. But rather than just talking about it, I could stand up in front of my class and say, the world is a big round ball, and there's water and there's land. Instead, they prepared this, and the children can work collaboratively, so they can color in the land, and they can color in the water, and they can place the appropriate things there. This could be done with small sheets of paper. Just make one for every table, and they work together to sort out the land and the water and the things that go in the right places. It's a more creative way to teach about geography than just talking about it, or just holding up a picture in front of the room and saying, look at the land and look at the water. But the teacher had to prepare ahead, right? They had to have a plan for the lesson. They had to think how they could present that information about land and water creatively. They had to think through, how can I involve the students more in this than just standing here and pointing to a picture that's already made. So there was some preparation that had to happen. I think the teacher, again, I don't know what they were really teaching, but it looks like the children are involved with some creativity, right? Not just hearing facts, this is land, this is water. That's a left-brained activity. Here they're learning that, but they're engaging their right brain as well, which is where that more creative process takes place. And so their learning is increased. Okay, next slide, Zach. There we go. So this is a picture from one of our reading camps. It was crazy. I have tons of pictures, and I know I have pictures of the library at Akramaman, and I know I have pictures from the library we've set up at Boite and other places, and this is the only library picture I could find. And I only found it after somebody prayed for me, because I wasn't finding any. Right, but here's the thing. This is the library. All it is a box. Okay, it's a wooden box, but you could use a cardboard box. And it's a bunch of old books. When we come to Ghana, in the US, we have used bookstores, and I can go and I buy a whole lot of books for very little money. I know you don't have that there, but I'm thinking that people have some books that are old. Like, I know Zach, okay, Sophia's 3.5, and she's got lots and lots of books. But she's got books now that they're too young for her, or she doesn't really like them. So they just sit on the shelf and they don't get used. And I bet that there are people around that have books that just sort of sit on the shelf and don't really get used. And maybe that's true in your school. Do you have a room in your school where you store old textbooks or old reading books or old books that the children have used but now don't use anymore? Because they can be pulled out and put in a box in a corner of a classroom, and it could be a library. Being exposed to lots of books increases children's creativity. It increases their desire to learn to read. You know, one thought that I had was, I wonder, and I know I know the culture's different in Ghana, but I was wondering, it's like, what would happen if you could ask at your churches for people that go to a church? Say, if anybody has any children's books that are not being used, that you could donate so we could make a little library at our school. Again, thinking creatively about how could we get some extra books in our classrooms or in a classroom that could be a library for our children to use. So trying to get a bunch of older books together for the children. That would be a way to spark their creativity and their interest in reading. But be creative. Think creatively in your context, in your culture. Where could you maybe find some old children's books that you could use in your classrooms? I know another thing that I've observed in Ghana is it's easy if you get those books, you know, people want to keep them nice, and that means the children don't handle them very much. We can teach children to wash their hands and to handle the books correctly. But it's important that they get to handle the books, really important. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, Zach. Thank you. So the title says seek alternatives to rote memorization. You know, we can teach children by having them memorize facts. And that's not the best way to learn. I'm very good at memorizing stuff. I memorized 1,000 dates when I was in high school and in college so that I could pass my classes. Now, in American history, all those dates I memorized, poof, gone. When I was in college, I memorized all sorts of dates about African history. Way back in college, I took African history and African geography. I think God was preparing, you know, my heart for being able to come to Ghana. Do I remember all those names and do I remember all those dates? Nope, because all I did was memorize them and then they're gone. So there's better ways to learn than just memorization. I can get a child to memorize bat, sat, cat, fat, hat. But if I can teach a child instead, so I have bat, but I want to change it into cat. What letters make the sound that starts the word cat? Cat. Well, it could be a C, it could be a K. Okay, so I'll tell them, okay, so it's a C. That's a good job. It's a C. But then I still just don't go bat and then cat. It's like, okay, what do I do to make bat into cat? I have to take off the B and replace it with a C. What do I do if I want to change cat into cap? Like I'd put on my head a cap. Oh, I'd have to leave the C and the A, take off the T, put on a P. So I'm teaching a strategy rather than just having them memorize something. We can talk about the process, right? About how things change from word to word. So rather than memorizing, we want our children to, if you look at the circle that's here, the big circle, okay, we want our children to be experiencing things by talking and sharing together. We want them to be reflecting on things that they've been taught and that they've been talking about. We want them to be thinking and we want them to be acting. So often motion is a way to increase creativity. And we want to provide more than just talk, 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 and memorization. Let me talk a moment about motion. You know, in the songs, and I've seen you all do a great job with this. Some of the songs or the poems we've brought have actions that are built in, like the eensy weensy spider, right? Everybody knows the actions to that. But many of the things we bring don't. And I've seen you all teachers over and over again creating motions for the children to do, or actions where they can get up and act it out, and that helps them learn the poem or learn the song. We can do that with all sorts of things, and it's really a helpful thing to build some acting out, some motion into our lessons so that we keep children engaged. Okay, let's go on, Zach. Here you go. Patience. Why would Auntie Becki put the word patience up here? Well, you know, often as teachers, we're not quite patient enough. We don't give enough think time to children. If we're creating a creative learning environment, we need to be sure children get enough think time to discover solutions. We don't want to be too quick to give them answers. Okay, so it's really important to, as we say here, bite our tongues sometimes and let the children have enough time to discover solutions on their own. Sorry, allergies. Washing the pollen out of my throat here. So patience is a really important thing for teachers to have, so that, again, children can have time to engage their brains. And we need to be sure that we're allowing enough time for even children who don't think quite as quickly to develop answers. It's very easy to, you know, you say, think about this, you know, let's all give examples of appliances that are cold or that are hot. Let's all give examples of appliances that are hot. And then it's like the quick children will go, oh, 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 oh. Okay, I've seen children in Ghana do that. So it's a thing there too, right? Meanwhile, you know, there are some children that just take an extra minute. And so a way to handle that is to say, we're going to name appliances that get hot, or things in our house that get hot. And everybody has to think for 30 seconds, which feels really long. Okay, and until I say raise your hand, nobody can raise their hand. You know, so sit with your hands so we don't raise them. And that gives children who aren't quite as quick a chance to also come up with solutions and find answers to the questions we ask. Otherwise, the quick ones get all the attention, and the slower ones, really, they wind up feeling stupid because they're never quite as quick. And it's not that the children who don't answer as fast, it's not that they're stupid or not as smart. That's not it at all. Some people just take longer to process things than others, but they might come up with a very creative solution if we just wait a few extra minutes and make everybody wait. Nobody raises their hand until I give the signal or say, raise your hand. We're just going to think about this for a minute, for 30 seconds, okay? So patience. Giving children time to think without it being a competition. Otherwise, they're like, oh, who can get their hand up fastest? That's not a good strategy. Okay, Zach, let's go ahead. Next slide. Here we go. We want to give feedback. In a creative classroom, teachers are very good at giving feedback. So let me read what's on the screen. I don't know how much you're able to see or read there. I don't know how big your screen is. So giving constructive and concrete feedback stimulates creativity. See, now, here's the thing, we give feedback, and I've seen, I mean, there's lots of feedback that's given by teachers in Ghana. I've seen it happen. And a lot of times it's fine to just go, good show, right? But this says constructive and concrete feedback, because that stimulates creativity. Well, what made it good show? What made it good? Okay, is it just that it was the right answer? Is there something we could say about the thinking the child did to be able to give that answer? Is there some way that we can take the answer and ask somebody else to say, yes, your answer was very good. I really liked the way you said you had a different idea. I really like the way, remember my example of the refrigerator? It's an appliance that also gets hot, right? I like the way you had an original idea. Can somebody else come up now with an original idea? Not a stove, not a fire, not an iron, right? So constructive and concrete feedback, not just, oh, it was good, but what made it good? Okay, what made it good? Students can be taught to give each other constructive feedback. So instead of the teacher always being the one to say, that was an excellent answer because it was correct, and it was excellent because it was creative. You know, you said a little more than I thought you would. We can teach children to give constructive feedback. You know, who can tell Comfort why her answer was a good answer? Who can tell Joseph what made his answer a fantastic answer? Who can take Samuel's answer and add to his good answer to give another good answer? So we can teach the students to be involved in giving feedback to each other. Okay. And again, it's more than just saying good show. We need to be saying to the child, what makes the answer good? Not every time, not every answer, but frequently, so that children are learning why their answers are good or great, and what can be done to improve their answers. All righty, Zach, next slide. So being creative. You know, here's some things to think about. And again, I'm so sorry that I just have to talk and talk and talk to make sure we get done before we lose a connection again. Being creative. How can you change up your daily routines to give them a new flair, or to make them feel fresh and new? Right? Is there something that you could change just a little to make it a slightly different, that it would be exciting and it would be new and fresh for the children? Right? Where can you as a teacher take a risk and do something in a new and more fun way? This is really hard for teachers. In the US, I taught teachers for several years. I went from classroom to classroom, and I worked with teachers that had been teaching a long time. And they all had their way they liked to do things. And I had to go into their classroom and I had to say, well, what's a new and different way we could do this? And teachers would say, I've been doing it this way for 30 years and it works just fine. And I would look at them and say, but children today are not quite the same as children 30 years ago. I mean, I think about Akramamon, which is where we've worked the longest, and the changes I've seen in Akramamon in like 15 years are amazing. The changes I've seen in Accra in 15 years blow my mind. So the children that you're teaching today are seeing things that are different than the children that you taught. If you've been teaching for 5 years, the children you taught 5 years ago had a different world experience than the children you're teaching today. Even if they're living in villages, things change. And so we want to model for the children taking risks and doing things in a new and more fun way. And that does it takes a risk for a teacher because it's easy to be comfortable. I've done it this way and this way works. But sometimes we need to say, I've done it this way and this way works, but is there a better way? Or I've done it this way and it works. I know there is a better way, a new way, a different way. And let's explore that and then take a risk and try it out. If the children see you taking risks in the way you do things in your classroom, they will also want to take risks in their learning. And that's what we want. We want children that are willing to take a risk being wrong, having it not work out quite right. But at the end, we've learned. We learn as much from our mistakes, if not more, than we learn from our successes. Right? We really do. As teachers, you will learn more from mistakes and things that don't work well than you'll ever learn from things that always work well. How can you take materials you have and use them in a new way? Okay, I know that you do not have like a lot of hands-on materials, but you have some. And how can you take what you have and use it in a new way? Or how can you find things that are inexpensive and available and use those in a new way? Excuse me again, gosh. And are you planning ahead and trying to think of new and creative methods for teaching? Or we always want to be thinking ahead and thinking, okay, I did this way today and it went well, but is there something I could do differently that would make it more interesting and go even better tomorrow? Here we would say we don't want to become satisfied with what we call the status quo, the way things have always been, because the world is changing, and because of that, children have changed. They have different opportunities and different things now than what they did when any of us were growing up. Okay. All righty, Zach, one more slide. Here you go. Where can you use student interests to add to your lessons? Right? I mean, I know that you have a curriculum and there are certain things that you're required to teach. But how are there ways that your children might have things they're interested in that we could plug into that? For example, if you're required to teach a science unit about mammals, what are the mammals that your students are most interested in? It would be very different in Ghana than here. I mean, our students here would be very interested in mammals actually that live in Africa, giraffes and elephants and tigers, although tigers don't live in Africa. Kangaroos, they're mammals, right? Maybe your students would be interested in grizzly bears because grizzly bears live in the United States. But what are some interests that they could bring and that you could add to your lesson to capture their attention? Or is there a time where they could choose their own topic to learn about, to read and to write about, right? If you're teaching a writing lesson, do the children have an opportunity to choose their own topic? Earlier, Johanna had said about writing a letter. That's a wonderful activity because it gets children to think about things that they need to communicate to someone else. Can they choose who they're writing to? What's the type of letter they're writing? Is it a letter to introduce themselves like you would to a pen pal? Is it a letter to ask permission to do something? Is it a letter that says, I would like to buy something from you? What's their purpose in writing? So, but you can set up some guidelines for them, but then have them choose, have input into their topic so that they own part of what they're doing. Is there a new game you can use to teach a skill? Again, Johanna mentioned Pinterest. If you just go on your phone, and on the internet, type in vocabulary games for children, you'll have hundreds of things that pop up. If you type in games to teach about mammals. You'll have hundreds of things that pop up, too many things to even look at. So there you have an opportunity to do a little research to come up with new games. And some people are just really good at coming up with games, right? To teach things. Kimberly, who came with us to Ghana a bunch of years ago, we had alphabet cards, and she took those alphabet cards and said, oh, we could pin these on children and play Red Rover, let letter A come over instead of saying the child's name. Maybe there's some games in Ghana that children play that you could use to invent a way to teach a skill. I'm thinking about that jumping game. I'm thinking about this right now for the first time. But like that jumping game, is there Ampi? Is that what it's called? Ampi? Where they jump and they clap? Jump. Ampi, that's it. Yes. I love watching that game. I could never do it, but I love watching it. Is there something that they could learn while they're doing that? Like letters or words or something or concepts while they're jumping and clapping. Somebody sitting in that classroom that I can barely see in my little screen here, somebody in that classroom sitting right there could come up with a game using Ampi that would teach a skill or teach vocabulary or teach math facts or teach something to your children. I know there is. Creative people, right? Talk to other teachers and brainstorm together. Okay, teaching, it tends to be a very isolating profession because there you are in your classroom with your children. And it's not very often that you can come together like this for training or to collaborate. So it's important to take the time, even if it's your personal time, spend a half an hour at the end of the school day. Once the children are gone, sit down with your colleagues and say, what's a creative way we could do this? How's this going for you? I need ideas about that. It's okay to say, I need help to get some ideas on how to do this better. That is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of professional growth, that we can say, I need ideas for this. Let's sit down and talk about ideas for that, right? The camp I'm working at this week, I'm called an owl. I love it. An older, wiser leader. And there are like lots of young people here running this camp. And it's like, okay, but they'll sit down with me and they'll say, okay, I need ideas about this. This didn't work the way I thought it would. Let's talk about that. That's not a sign that they are weak leaders or poor teachers. That is a sign that they are professionals that want to grow. So encourage each other and talk with each other and brainstorm together to come up with creative ideas. Okay, Zach, next slide. This, I think, this is the last slide, I think. Yes, no, there's one more after this with resources. So I had sent this along. I don't know if it got copied. If it did, you don't need to hand it out now, or if it's already handed out, fine. But this is a sheet that says how to develop creative lesson plans, 13 ideas to keep students engaged. And it's just some different activities that we can use to have to make our lessons more creative and involve the students a little more. And I'm going to just mention a couple. There said 13. Yes, 13 ideas. I'm going to mention like maybe 4. So there's storyboarding. So instead of having students write what they're learning, have them make a sequence of pictures. Okay, so you make a picture showing the beginning of something, the middle of something, the end of something. That's a storyboard. This is how people that plan movies make things, right? They sketch out some rough sketches of what's going to happen, especially before computers. It can be a way of showing how a flow of an idea works. So you create a sequence of drawings to show your thinking or to explain your answer. It's called storyboarding. Perspective taking. Johanna mentioned this. I think Zach mentioned this. Some years, Debbie's done some work talking about things, and one of the things in that work is perspective taking. So we ask the students to take the position of another person to see things from a different perspective. Okay. You can role play, have students get up in front and role play to exercise. This exercises critical thinking and gives students a chance to practice the things they've learned. So if they've learned a new fact or a new skill, they can come up front, and instead of being the student, now they could be the teacher. They could explain it from the teacher's perspective, or maybe they could explain it from the headmaster's perspective, or maybe they could explain something from the perspective of a person who drives the trotro, right? So just trying to get them outside of themselves, but thinking from somebody else's perspective about a situation. Make it authentic. There's a section called Make It Authentic. So being able to show students the importance of why they're learning what they're learning. I know I have 4 children, and I remember clearly when they were younger, and they would ask, why do I have to learn this? In fact, Uncle Zach, he would say, why do I have to memorize these math facts? Right? It's like, well, because if you're going to have money and want to keep track of it, you need to be able to add and subtract at least. Then you get to high school. Why do I have to take geometry? Nobody really uses geometry. Well, when you get to be an adult, yeah, you do use geometry, right? So how can we make learning geometry? How in K-5, first grade, how do we make learning the names of shapes something that's really important? Make it authentic. Well, the house that I'm staying in is one big rectangle. It's helpful to know that, but the kitchen area, that's a square. The fire pit out back, that's a circle. So making it authentic, try to find real life situations where they can see what you're teaching in action, right? Make it a game. Again, just, children love to play. They love creativity. So if we can turn learning activities into some type of game, it really can help to get information to be conveyed more quickly. And it doesn't always have to be a game that's directly related to what you're teaching. It can be something as simple as, excuse me, you have a ball and, okay, we pass it from person to person. If you're learning math facts, and I know we're doing reading, but it's useful any place. You're doing math facts, okay, 2 + 2 is 4. You get to bounce the ball 4 times. Hand it to the next person. The next person says, 1 + 1 is 2. Well, they only get to bounce the ball 2 times, right? So some kind of game that gets kids engaged and gets them up and active can be very helpful too. And there's some other things on this paper that I'm not going to go over. Using movement is one. Story writing is another. But I feel like I'm just talking forever here, so I won't. So Zach, last slide. Now on the screen, I have a bigger screen. It's still small print. I do believe I sent this along as a handout. These are some websites you can go to that have some information about creativity, including the sources for some of what I've spoken about today. So if you have internet access, you could go to that. And again, I believe there's a handout, a paper that has it written on. You would need to be very, very careful to put it into your phone or your tablet or your computer just the way it would be on the paper. At the bottom, the very last one, the one that says we are teachers, that's free teacher resources. Again, you can go to that website and put in, I'm teaching about monkeys. And they will have games that teach math facts, ways to teach vocabulary, activities that encourage speaking, and things will pop up. So just a few internet resources there that you can go to. But I would not advise trying to copy those off the screen, because I do believe you're getting a copy of that. And if you're not, we'll try to fix that somehow so that we can make sure you have those resources. But again, you can go on your phone or on your tablet and simply say, creativity in the classroom, games to use in class in grade 2, right? Activities that teach whatever topic you're teaching, and lots of things will pop up there. Alrighty, I think that concludes what I was going to present. I did want to say, did I say this already? I know I talked about art. There we go. Yeah, we can take down the slide, Zach. There we go. End the presentation. I'm not sure I said this. No, I did say that. Never mind. I did say about the lesson plans being different. Said that up front. I have a note. Alrighty, so I think that I sort of ran through things, and since you all were not able to be interactive, it didn't take as long as we thought, but I believe that's the end of what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Becki, for doing that. Teachers, I am so sorry we had to do it this way. We promise there are several of us coming in person next year. I also wanted to thank you for